Good afternoon. Hand today is pocket nines. So in this hand, we have a raise of three big blinds by a loose player. Out of 44 hands, he's played 66 of them. His raise first in step, that's mid position or early position. This is the first time, but you can see that he's only had 16 opportunities, so maybe 13%. It looks like he's doing a lot more limping or calling pre-flop than he is doing raising. So the fact that he raised suggests that he's probably in a solid part of his range here. Maybe like ace jack, maybe something like that. That's 8%. Maybe he doesn't have like the jack tens. Maybe he doesn't have the offsuits, but I think we're going to go with that. So now it's on to me. Mid position versus a early position player has me calling pretty tight. Against this player, I don't think raising makes a whole lot of sense, even with aces or kings. Yeah, it's going to help us get heads up. But, if we assume that everyone else is going to fold, I think we have a better chance at winning a little bit more from this player just by calling. He's c-betting so far 100%. Both times he's got to the pot, he's just bet and he's bet and he's bet. So like if you have a hand like aces, you could probably just call him down and figure to win the pot. Now let's look at these other players. Out of all of these players, this player is somewhat loose. He's on the button. He's playing 44-3. He has called 2-bet 50%, so 6 out of 12. He's definitely a player that could be calling. If we get one caller, then I wouldn't be surprised if the big blind calls. But out of the remaining players, the only one that looks like he would come along is this player, and he would be coming along with a weaker hand. So there is some value for raising for 3-betting just to try to isolate. But if we look at this guy's range, this player's range, if we 3-bet, do we really expect any hands to fold? Yeah, maybe ace jack, ace queen, ace king. So we're going from 8.6% down to 5.88%, so maybe folding about 30% of the time. Maybe 35% maybe. But I kind of expect him to call at least all of those. Now, he'll probably 3-bet aces and kings and possibly even ace king. So you can account for those and then call with the rest. So we're going to go with a call. And what we get is a small blind called. That's a little bit unusual for him. Small blind calls. 2-bets about 20% of the time. You could see definitely plays a little bit more frequently in the small blind and in the big blind, just calling pots. I'm going to guess that's speculative hand. How frequently does he raise? His 3-bet stat is 10%. 3 out of 31. Kind of tough to judge that. So we're going to go with, I'd say, 20, 2% maybe, something like that. Get rid of the aces and kings, and then what we're going to do is make it much more so it is he's looking at hands that he can call and flop something big. Something like that. We'll say that's his calling range. All right, so we're going to see a flop. I am definitely a narrow range, and it's something to pay attention to. If I'm playing this narrow, then other players that play like me are also this narrow. So you can see that I really only have 58 combos here. I'm playing 4.37%. It's pretty narrow. So if I call on the flop, I have some sort of hand, or I'm trying to take it away. I mean, on a board that says ace king 10, yeah, it's possible that I have queen jack, but that only represents 4 combos. So just kind of have to pay attention to that. So the flop comes up 10 of hearts, 9 of spades, and 5 of hearts. Oops. 10 of hearts, 9 of spades, 5 of hearts, and let's get this. So I really don't think that board hits this player at all. He can have overcards, or he can have overpairs, jacks, queens, kings, aces, but I don't see him hitting maybe flush draws. You can see that most of his hands, 22% is overpair. He's got another 5.5% for set, so you're looking at 28% is overpair plus. Top pair is only 3%, and his draws, flush draws, are 5%. Open-ended straight draws at 4%. Nothing too scary as far as I'm concerned. I do expect him to bet. He's probably going to be betting 100% of his range, but it never got there. This player bets. He donks out 16%, which is kind of telling. So this is a hand where I think he's trying to judge where he is in this hand. So on the flop, he donk bets. There it is, 16%, 4 out of 25. So let's see what he is going to donk with. I don't really think it's going to be a set. I really don't think it's going to be an overpair. Could be jacks or queens, and he's looking to see if he's ahead. But normally, these donk bets are going to be something like this: Jack 10, maybe Queen 10, 10 of spades, 10, 10 8. So top pair with a weaker kicker. Probably a middle pair, looking to see if his 9 is good. Could be one of these pocket pair below the second card, 6, 7, 8s. Possibly. Let's see if I've got a note on here. No, I don't have anything. Limp and call to raise. I think the draws are typically just going to check call. So I think he's got a pair. And even the pocket pair below the second card is going to be a little bit generous. I think it's a little bit liberal to have that in his calling range, but 6, 7, 8s, I mean, he blocks those straights. Villain 5 just calls, and the question is, what is he going to just call with instead of raising? I think he could call his draws. Would he call a gut shot? Yeah, possibly. I think so. All of those, I'm going to give him. Would he ever? I guess the better question is, would he ever raise? Would he raise with an overpair? Would he raise with a set? I don't know. I think he could. I think players could be trappy. This is a 25 NL game. I think they recognize that if they raise with a set and someone shoves, they're gonna get all in with the set. And his raise would be easy to 18, probably 20 big blinds. And that means if he calls, he's going to be down to 60 big blinds or so, and that's going to be a pot size bet on the turn. Maybe he doesn't want to risk that much, so why not just call with the set or overpair and hope that I come along with it? I think he would call with the top pair. I don't think he'll call with these other hands. So I'm going to say that that's his calling range. And now it's on us. What do we do? Do we just call? Do we raise? You can see that we don't have a huge number of cards, huge number of hands. I think we could raise a flush draw. So let's get our bets here. I think we could raise our flush draw. I think we could raise our straight draw. I think the straight draw would be good with Queen Jack, because if a king comes, if an 8 comes, and if it's a non-heart, we can probably get another bet out of people, because the most obvious draw is going to be the hearts, the heart draw. So we have all of those. That represents, let's see if I can change it to combos, 7 combos total. So then, question is, what else do we raise with? I think we can raise with our set. And I think I'd be hesitant with the overpair. And I'm hesitant with the overpair because of this player. He's loose, but he's tight when he raises pre-flop. And I just think he's got a lot of these overpairs. And the overpairs that I have in my hand are those jacks. So I just feel like I don't think I should include it. I think we should go about 50-50 here. Flush over open in a straight draw with our set and see what happens. So I think that's going to be my raising range. What do? I do raise. Oh, I guess that brings up the question, what should my raise be? Since we already have a call, so we're looking at a pot size bet of about 26, 27 big blinds. I think we could bet that big, because if he shoves, then it's going to be another. Let's pull out the calculator. So if he calls, he's got 72 minus 26.56, plus we're going to add that his bet. So it's another 52. So it's 52 to call. We're going to be getting the odds to call with the sets, and it's possible that we'll have the odds with the flush draws. I think we apply pressure. I think it looks like we have a draw, and it's gonna. I think definitely 6, 7s, 8s are gonna be able to fold, no problem. But I think it's gonna be hard for a 10 to fold. And really, if he calls, then that opens up this guy to just like open shove with his overpair, and that's great. We can probably have to fold our draws, but we would be calling with our sets at that point. So what happens? Villain 2 folds. With Villain 2 folding, I'm going to say he's probably at that pocket pair second card, probably the middle pair. But Villain 5 calls. So what does Villain 5 call with? So he already played that hand. Does he call with the top pair? Possibly. Does he call with the flush draw? We're going to say that he is calling with all of those. So just basically he was going to call no matter what. So here's my range. This is his range. So his range is 52.3%. He has 56 combos. My range is 25% previous range. I've got 13 combos. And then the turn card is a 3 of hearts. And that's actually hits my flush draw. And I could easily fire out another bet with this. And I think with our bet, we could probably go. Well, if we do a pot size bet, I mean, we're at. My stack is just under 2 times the pot. Under 2 times, 1.75 maybe. So 3 hearts comes out. Let's see how that plays with equities. So I've got 69.3%. His is 30.7. Let's see what he does. He checks. I think he checks 100% of his range, and the question is, what's he going to call? I think you can see 43% of the time he's got the overpair. He's got a set 10% of the time. He's got a flush 8.9% of the time. If I bet and he calls, I don't think he's calling. I mean, he could call with the top pair. He might call with the flush draw. So the question is, what am I going to get him to call? I think we could bet something like 40 big blinds. That leaves us with about 76 big blinds. He calls, and it sets up, over a half pot bet on the river, if we choose to bet on the river. I think that size encourages the flush draws, the lone flush draws to call. So, ace, king, queen. I think they're already going to call anyways. I think the open-ended straight draws are going to fold. So if we just go with that, we can even get rid of all of those. It's 67.9%. 67.9% if he goes with the overpairs. And I think he could. You're looking at 67.9% calling. He's folding, 32%. He checks. I check behind, which I guess that's okay. But if he shoves, if he overbet shoves, do we call? I think this might be a mistake. It's the heart is scary, but I think it hits our range, at least our raising range. And by checking here, I think it almost gets rid of our flush. I think there's so many hands that he would have called, unless we think he's not going to be calling these, that he's going to give us credit for having the flush. Then he's only calling with sets and the flush himself, so he's calling at 20%. So I guess that's probably what I was thinking, was that he's probably only going to be calling with the set or a flush, and he'd fold everything else. But if I check behind, then I might be able to get one bet from him. So let's see what happens. So let's continue. So we checked. Not sure if I like my check entirely. Their turn range, they checked. So they have 100% of their range. We've got 56 combos, and then we've got the 2 spades that hits. Definitely, I'm glad it wasn't a heart. That would have really stunk. So my range is equity is 72.4. Theirs is 27.6. And now I'm going to expect them to bet. And they bet half pot. What do they bet half pot with? I bet they bet half pot with overpair plus. They do that. And the question is, what would they call? What would they call? At this point, I am going to be calling with the set and flush. I'm going to fold with everything else. So I'm calling 76.9% of the time. I'm 85.9. If I raise, if I shove all in, what is he going to call? I think he's going to fold the overpair. I really do. He folds the overpair, and you can see that his equity really goes up because he's playing sets and flushes. So I'm not sure if a raise here would be for value or not. Actually, it doesn't look like it would be for value. So I just called, and that's probably the right play because I don't see him calling with more. And he called with a king jack off. Didn't even have king jack off. But just to put it in perspective, king jack off, he called with a gut shot. If he had king jack off and he raised pre-flop with that, he might be raising with queen jack as well. So then once that 3 hearts hits, I do think he would be calling with those flush draws. So we could have bet and gotten a bet out there. Let's check his river probe. So he hasn't probed yet. Not a whole lot. 44 hands. So I think we could slow down, but I think on the turn it might be a little bit better to bet again because a hand like this is going to probably call one more time. Whereas if we check and they miss and they check to us again, I don't think we're going to get that last bet. So betting about 40 big blinds, a little more than half pot, might have been the way to go to get a few more hands in there. I do think we're probably going to be committed. Just kind of depends on the player. If we check and they raise, it's strong. It's very strong likelihood that they have the flush at that point. Most people, at least at the stakes that I'm playing, most people aren't going to be check raising as a bluff. So I think we could probably safely fold. All right. Hope you enjoyed the hand. If you liked it, look tomorrow for another.